Alright, hello everybody. So I got a treat for you today. So there's a lot of things I want to do and I kind of want to get started on, but it's really hard due to some living situation things currently, but I thought it would be fun to do a reading of The Beast Within. Now, some longtime followers of mine, especially from my other channel, will know that I read Susan Kay's Phantom, which is like a published fanfic of the Phantom of the Opera, and a lot of people like it, and a lot of people can't get their paws on it. Or some people, there's no audio book version as far as I know of that exists, so I just read it for fun, and a lot of people liked it, so I'm gonna try doing that with this book called The Beast Within, part of the Disney Villain series, and it looks like it is written by, I'm holding the book, I am looking, it just says Valentino, Serena Valentino. So, it got a good review on Amazon. I'll put the thing right here. At the time of writing this, August 17th, 2020, the book is available on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description so you guys can get it whenever you want. For hardcover, it's going to run you about $10.23, zero on Kindle, and about $13.95 on the paperback. So, not terrible, but when I first read this, I bought it freshman year of college, and I went to Disney World, and they were selling it in the Beauty and the Beast gift shop in the Enchanted part of Disney World. I was excited to read it personally, because I love Beauty and the Beast. It's my favorite thing ever, and I love the Beast character. Any kind of Beast character in any Beauty and the Beast story is like my favorite thing, and Beast is really important to me. So I was like, oh my god, a little book that Disney sponsors just for him. So excited. I didn't see the villain part on the thing. Beast really isn't a villain. Now, this writer has written other books for Ursula, the Wicked Queen, Maleficent, all the big Disney evil players, but Beast isn't really a villain. In the beginning, he does act villainous, but he changes throughout the movie and becomes a hero. So he's more of an anti-hero, and I don't count Maleficent as an anti-hero. We're not talking about that shitty live-action thing. Don't get me started. I'm angry at that live-action thing. To me, the original Maleficent is the queen of evil, or the mistress of all evil, from the original movie. Best villain ever, favorite Disney villain, the person you love to hate. She's queen, okay? She's queen evil, and I love her as that. Anyway, Beast is not like that. I'm surprised that it's not Gaston. I can't remember why it's not, or I'm sure we'll figure that out as we read through. So, I did read this book, and I know I'm saying, I think I remember. I honestly can't remember anything from reading this book. I remember thinking that fan fiction was better when I was reading this book, and I remember thinking, why the fuck are there 3 witches involved? Because there's 3 witches involved, and I remember feeling weird because I think a lot of stuff was retconned in this. But this was so long ago, not that long ago, but it's kind of astonishing how well I can't remember it compared to something that I read once longer than this, and I can actually tell you more about it. So, yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Maybe it's just my memory throwing out information. If you get the hardcover version, what's kind of cool about it, it comes with the jacket, it's got the beast on it and everything. And I'm holding the book right now, so I'm telling you. And when you take off the jacket, it's the human form of the beast. It's his face on the side of the book, which I think is kind of neat. I don't know what they did for the other villain books. I don't have any of the other ones. So, just gonna do with that. As a disclaimer, I have pets. I'm also breeding mice, so you might hear them during the course of the video. I'm kind of lazy. I don't think I'm really going to do too much editing with this. So I'm only going to do this like I did with the Susan Kay thing, so I'm only going to read it chapter by chapter. Also, according to Amazon, remember I said it was like 11 or 14 bucks, depending. I bought this for $17 US in Disney World, in the Disney gift shop. Plus tax. So you're gonna get a deal on Amazon for this book. The book's not that long compared to Susan Kay. It's only about 215 pages. It's very short. So, it also came out about 2014, I guess. It's about right. So, without further ado, I'm going to get this started. I won't really comment on anything else. I'm sorry, I'm not a professional. I don't claim to be. This is just for fun. If you guys enjoy it, you enjoy it. We'll see what happens. So yeah, I'm going to start with reading what's on the inside of the book, which is a little summary of the story. It says, "The tale is as old as time. A cruel prince is transformed into a beast. A lovely maiden comes into this monster's life. He is transformed by her compassion and the love he feels for her in return. The two live happily ever after. But any tale, especially one as storied as Beauty and the Beasts, has been told many different times, and in many different ways. No matter which version one hears, the nagging question remains, what was it that transformed the prince into the beast we are introduced to? This is one version, pulled from the many passed down through the ages. It's a story of vanity and arrogance, of love and hatred, of beastliness, and, of course, of beauty." So, that in general should kind of give you an idea of what we're in for. So I'm a nerd with the story, right? I know everything about Disney's Beauty and the Beast, as well as the original tale and its versions and all that stuff. In the Disney canon, there was the Christmas special, right? And in this little bit, Lumiere says, 10 years we've been waiting for someone to break the curse in one of the songs. No, he doesn't say that in his Christmas special, I'm sorry. He says that in the original during Be Our Guest. The beast has been a beast for 10 years because the rose blooms until his 21st birthday, which would lead him to be about 11, I think, maybe 12 or 11. I'm really bad at math, but it's about there when he was turned. In the Christmas special, you see when that happens. I don't know if the Disney animators or anybody knew this or did the math, but according to Lumiere and everything in the first movie, he was 11 or 12. So we're just going to leave it at that. So this whole thing, like, I don't know what turned him into a beast. It's kind of dumb because it does get explained in the beginning of the first movie where you have the whole prelude there. It was the fact that he scorned an evil lady. I mean, not an evil lady, an ugly lady. And she turned him into a beast. Because he scorned her because she was ugly. So, he paid for his vanity and his bad feelings and bad mojo. He was just not a nice guy. And, you know, he got what he deserved. Was it a harsh curse? Maybe. I mean, there's other tales where he's done far less and gotten screwed over more. So, I don't know. I think it's okay. I mean, eventually it comes over. I think it's a little harsh because he's a boy. And, you know, you don't see any parents. So maybe he was just wary about, like, letting some rando into his house that looked kind of sketchy. So I think it wasn't too bad, but I feel bad thinking about that. He had to go through life for 10 years as a beast. Like, he went through puberty as a beast. I wonder how that worked. Okay, I'm not going to go through that. Let's just start the book. Okay, and I'll put in dates for when I start rambling for people who just want to get into the audio version. Okay. A Beast Within, A Tale of Beauty's Prince by Serena Valentino. Beginning here. Dedicated to my dearest love, Shane Case. Oh, that's cute. Now I'm a sucker for romance. It's cute. I won't be talking too much of this. I'll try to take this seriously. Let's get me one more drink. And let's get going. Chapter 1. The Witches in the Rose Garden. The beast stood in his rose garden, the overwhelming scent of new blossoms making him slightly dizzy. His garden always seemed to have a life of its own, as if the twisting thorny vines could wrap themselves around his racing heart and put an end to his anxiety. There were times when he wished they would, but now his mind was filled with images of the beautiful young woman inside his castle. Belle, so brave and noble, willing to take her father's place as a prisoner in a castle dungeon. What sort of woman would do that? Give up her life so easily, sacrificing her freedom for her father's? The beast wondered if he was capable of such sacrifice. He wondered if he was capable of love. He stood there looking at the view of his castle from the garden. He tried to recall how the castle had looked before the curse. It was different now, menacing and alive. Even the spires of his castle seemed to consciously pierce the sky with a violent fervor. He could only imagine how the place looked from a distance. It was tall and imposing, and perched on the top of the highest mountain in the kingdom. And it appeared as though it were cut from the very mountain itself, surrounded by a thick green forest filled with dangerous wild creatures. Only since he had been forced to spend his life hidden within its wretched walls on its grounds had he done such things as take in his surroundings this way, actually see and indeed feel them. He now contemplated the moonlight casting sinister shadows on the statues that flanked the path leading from the castle to his garden. Large winged creatures, more frightening than anything from the ancient stories the tutors of his youth had made him study. He couldn't recall these sculptures being there before the castle and its lands were enchanted. There had been many changes since the witches had brought their enchantments. The topiaries, for example, seemed to snarl at him as he prowled the labyrinth on evenings like this, attempting to take his mind off his troubles. He had long since gotten used to the statues' watchful eyes glancing at him when he wasn't looking at them directly, and their slight movements he caught only out of the corner of his eye. He couldn't escape the feeling of being watched, and had almost gotten used to it. Almost. And the grand entrance of his castle seemed to him like a gaping mouth prepared to devour him. He spent as much time outdoors as possible. The castle felt like a prison, and as large as it was, it confined him, choking the life out of him. Once, when he was still, dare he think it, human, he spent much of his time outdoors, stalking wild beasts in his forest for sport. But when he himself turned into something to be hunted, he shut himself away in those first years, never leaving the West Wing, let alone the castle. Perhaps that was why he now detested being within doors. He had once spent so much time locked away by his own fear. When the castle was first enchanted, he thought that his mind was playing tricks on him, that simply the idea of the curse had driven him mad. But he now knew everything that surrounded him was alive, and he was fearful any further misdeeds on his part would send it into a frenzy, and his enemies would make him suffer even more for the pain he had caused so many before he had become a beast. The physical transformation was only part of the curse. There was much more, and it was far too frightening to think of. Right now, he wanted to think of the only thing that could calm him even slightly. He wanted to think of her. Belle. He looked upon the lake to the right of the garden, the moon creating beautiful silver patterns on the rippling water. Apart from his thoughts of Belle, this was the only tranquility he had been afforded since the curse. He had spent many hours here, careful not to catch sight of his own reflection, though sometimes he was tempted. He was fully aware of the revulsion it would bring. He had been almost obsessed with his reflection when the curse began to take hold, and he quite liked little changes in his appearance at first. The deep lines, he mused, had made his young face more fearsome to his enemies, but now that the curse had overtaken him completely, he couldn't stand the sight of himself. Every mirror in the castle had been broken or shut away in the West Wing. His terrible deeds were engraved on his face, and that sent a hollow, wretched feeling deep into his gut, sickening him. But enough of that. He had a beautiful woman within his walls. She was a willing captive, someone to talk to, and yet he couldn't even bring himself to face her. Fear. It gripped him again. Would his fear now keep him outside, where once it had shut him in? Fear of going within doors and facing the girl. She was a wise woman. Had she had no idea his fate was in her hands? The statues watched, as they always did, when he heard the click of tiny boots on the stone path heading in his direction, disturbing his musings. The odd sisters, Lucinda, Ruby, and Martha, an indistinguishable trio of witches with inky black ringlets, a milky pallor with the texture of bleached driftwood, and red baby doll lips, were standing before him in his rose garden. Their faces glowing in the moonlight like those of ghosts with mocking expressions. Their finery glittered like stardust in his dark garden, while the plumage in their hair made like bird-like gestures all the more grotesque. There was a nervousness about them. They were seized by a constant series of little twitches and gestures, as if they were in continuous communication with each other, even when they weren't speaking. They seemed to be taking measure of him, and he let them. He stood in silence, as he often did when they came to him, waiting for them to speak. They appeared whenever they pleased, and always without warning. Never mind, it was his castle and his gardens. He had long before given up on insisting that they appear at his will. He soon discovered his own desires were of no consequence to them. Their laughs were shrill and seemed to mock the tiny glimmer of hope the witches detected within his dark and lonely heart. Lucinda was the first to speak, as was their custom. He couldn't help but being transfixed by her face when she spoke to him. She looked like an odd doll come to life, with her porcelain skin and ratty clothes, and her unflattering monotone voice only made the scene more macabre. So, you've captured yourself a pretty little thing at long last. He didn't bother asking how they knew Belle had come to his castle. He had his theories on how they always seemed to know everything about him, but didn't care to share them with his sisters. We're surprised, Beast, said Martha, her pale blue eyes watery and globe-like. Yes, surprised. Ruby spat with an eerie wide grin, animating her two red lips morbidly, like a dead creature brought to life by evil incarnations. We expected your condition to have progressed by now, said Lucinda with her head cocked slightly to the right while she looked at him. We dreamed of you running in the wood hunting smaller prey. Ruby continued. We dreamed of hunters tracking you down. Martha laughed and said, hunting you like the beast you are, and mounting your head on the huntsman's tavern wall. Why are you even wearing clothes, we see? Holding on to the last shred of your humanity, it is, they said in unison. The beast did nothing to betray his terror. Terror not of the witch's magic, but of his own threatening nature, of which they were reminding him. They were holding a mirror up to the monster within, which was longing to escape. It was a beast that wanted to kill the witches and everything else in its path. He longed to see blood and bones, to taste their flesh. If he tore at their throats with his claws, he'd never have to listen to their shrill, taunting voices again. Lucinda laughed. Now that is what we expected of you, beast. And Martha said, He will never capture Belle's heart, sister, no matter how desperate he is to break the curse. He is too far gone now, I dare say. Perhaps if he showed her how he once looked, she may have pitied him, Ruby said as a maddening cacophony of laughter filled the rose garden. Pity him, yes, but love him, never. The beast used to hurl insults back at all of them, but it seemed only to fuel their passion for cruelty, and he didn't dare stir up his own anger and desire for violence, so he just stood stock still, waiting for their little torture session to end. Martha spoke again. In case you've forgotten, here are the rules, beast, laid out by all the sisters. You must love her, and that must And that love must be returned with true love's kiss before your 21st birthday. She may use the manner as you do, to see into the world beyond your kingdom. But she must never know the details of the curse or how it's to be broken. You will notice she sees the castle and its enchantments differently than yourself. The most terrifying aspects of the curse are reserved for you. The beast stared blankly at the witches. Martha smiled creepily and continued. This is your one advantage. The only thing in this castle or on its grounds that will frighten Belle is your visage. Lucinda chimed in. When was the last time you looked upon your reflection, beast, or saw to the rose? There had been a time when the rose wasn't out of his sight. Lately he tried to forget it, but almost expected the sister's visit this evening would be to inform that the last petal had fallen off its enchanted stem. But they were always here to mock him, as always, to tempt him to violence, and they'd love nothing more than to see his soul further besmirched. Lucinda's cackling voice brought him out of his reverie. It won't be long now, Martha continued. Not long at all, beast. Soon the last petal will fall, and you shall remain in this form with no chance of transformation to your former self. And one day we will dance, they finished in unison. The beast finally spoke. And what of the others? Are they to remain as they are, doomed to enchantment as well? Ruby's eyes widened in wonder. Concern? Is that what we detect? Isn't that odd? Concern for himself. Yes, for himself. Always himself, never others. Why would he concern himself with servants? He never gave them a second thought, unless it was to punish them. I think he's afraid of what they might do to him if he doesn't break the curse. I think you're right, sister. I am also interested in seeing what they'll do. It shall be a gruesome spectacle indeed. And we shall take much pleasure in bearing witness to it. Don't forget, beast, true love, both given and received, before the last petal falls. And with that, the sisters turned on the heels of their tiny pointed boots and clicked their way out of the rose garden, the sound fading little by little until they vanished into a sudden mist, and the beast could no longer hear them at all.